school will always be here. You'll never be this young again that can take this amount of risk. So if you're going to go all in, like, now is the time, because once life starts to happen, then it makes it that much more challenging. I do think it's some of the best advice I've ever gotten.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Ryan Scialabba. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? Happy to be here.
Thanks, man. Did I brutally mess up your last name, or did we get it good?
We got it. All
right, cool.
That's why all my social media stuff just says call me Shibby, because everybody comes up with some variation of my last name that I typically have never heard before. But you got it.
So everyone, listen. Today's gonna be cool. Ryan's in Pittsburgh. Hey, Ryan, where did we first meet? Do you remember? I don't remember. I was probably hitting you guys up for deals.
Well, yeah. So we've done. I think you've bought every one of our Bethel Park properties that we've ever put out, which has only been a few. We know when we get a property over in Bethel that we give you a call.
You're in Pittsburgh. I'm in Pittsburgh. It's a small city. Well, you're young, aren't you? How old are you?
So I just turned 31 a few weeks ago, February 10th.
All right. So this is going to be a good conversation because I'm 43. When I was 31 years old, I was broke and I had a one-bedroom apartment. So, you're like light years away ahead of where I was. So, Ryan, how long have you been doing, give everyone a background, like how long you been doing real estate and how you got into it?
Yeah. So I got my real estate license directly out of high school. So this was 2012. I thought that becoming a real estate agent was the only way that you could get into real estate itself. Growing up watching HGTV, back then a lot of A&Es type stuff like Flip This House. And my dad worked for US Airways, local airline here. So at 10 years old, I watched him and that company go through 2 bankruptcies in 18 months. So basically, as my childhood goes from a perfect middle-class childhood to, my dad only my dad had to work. We were comfortable. We got to do vacations. Like money was never a conversation in the house. To in 18 months, he loses pension, loses 401k. His pay was cut almost in half. And basically that feeling of like starting over. And so now at 10, money becomes a conversation in the house for the first time in my life. And for the rest of, say, my childhood, like I got to really witness the stress of not having it. My mom had to go back to work. Just the energy and the conversation really changed in the house. So throughout high school, my dad and I were flipping things. We were flipping tickets. He was a mechanic. So I would find stuff on Craigslist or eBay, buy it, broken, side of the road, whatever. He would fix it up. Then I would resell it like weed whackers, lawnmowers, vehicles, dirt bikes, didn't matter what it was. And that was a lot of the way that side money got brought in. And then having that interest in real estate, leaving high school, it was funny being like, I was decent at football and I was pretty good at school. So when the recruiters would come in, I would just make something up that day. They'd be like, "What do you want to do?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I want to be a dentist," because it sounded good. "Oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to, but business owner, you never told a recruiter that like you wanted to own your own business because they want you to come to their school, come play for them, get a degree, all that. And one of my buddies at the time had called me out on it. And he was like, "You say something different every single time a recruiter comes in here. Like, what do you actually want to do?" And that was the first time I ever really thought about it. And real estate had always piqued my interest. So got my real estate license, went to college, and then ultimately to transition into investing after coming home from freshman year of college, my dad helped me get a job working for a builder and another job working for a flipper. So I got to kind of see the investing and building side of things. And arrogant 19-year-old me, the only thing I really learned from that experience was like, you don't need to be real bright to, to be an investor. Like I was blown away at how simple things were and the decisions that were being made. Like how does this turn into money, the amount of money that it does at the end? And so that's when the conversation started happening about real estate investing. And ultimately, my 20th birthday, my dad surprised me with tickets to a 3-day flipping seminar for a company called Fortune Builders, which was at the time Than, Paul, and JD from A&E's Flip This House. So after a 3-day weekend and my dad taking out a home equity line of credit, dropping 25 G's, we were now real estate investors. That really just launched the journey into investing, and ultimately now, over 10 years later, what is today.
Nice. Did you go back to college after your freshman year, or did you say screw that?
So I went back I finished 2 years, and we had a deal. So it was my sophomore year when I got the tickets. I had finished out that year. So just picture me, 20 years old, in my dorm room. I have all this take
Which school?
home.
Was it local?
Yeah, I went to Allegheny up in Meadville. And imagine me coming back home after this 3-day weekend. I'm all pumped up. I'm like, I'm going to go grow and scale this real estate company. And my roommate and all my, ex-football buddies were like, no, you're not. This is a joke. But I was pumped up and I was focused. So I went all in. It's pretty cool for like the newer people that would listen. I went to, I knew you had to, get a website up and going and stuff like that because they taught us that. So I went to like the video department and I hung a sheet up in my dorm room and bought a domain from GoDaddy, borrowed a video camera, and like built out my first website like right from my dorm room. Just like the very basics of stuff. Had business cards, and I wasn't even home yet. But my dad and I made a deal. If I got a deal done before I reported back from my junior year, I could take the year off. And I closed my first deal 2 weeks before having to report back to college. So I did not go back for my junior year.
What do you tell people that are pumped, they got a great idea, and everyone shits on it?
This happens a lot. So now one of the things I know we'll get to in talking about is that we own a brokerage now. And so I have a lot of conversations with people that want to become a real estate agent or just get into real estate in general. And my answer has changed over the years. Back when, I would say before owning the brokerage, I would tell everybody like, yeah, it's awesome, get into it. Now that I'm this far in and I've watched so many people fall out or lose passion about it, like I would say it is truly a means to an end as far as real estate investing goes. Like, yes, it's something that I initially had passion for. I wouldn't say that the X's and O's of real estate is something I have passion for anymore, but it is a means to a beautiful and amazing life. And so that's what kind of keeps me going. I think that's one of the hardest things. When you get started, you're so excited, but then the reality of the work sets in so fast. And then on top of that, it's a series of sprints inside of a marathon. But even when you think you're getting closer to the finish line, it's just another set of races. And so that goalpost kind of always moving. Now I'm much more aware, and I try to pass that awareness on to people as far as like, if you're going to get into a real estate investing or career in general, I think that you have the ability to dabble, to do one at a time, to do two at a time, and really figure out what it is, like why you're using what's that real estate piece for you versus like quitting your job immediately and going all in, when you have a family and kids. So I definitely think it's a much more well-rounded conversation now, just to kind of give you a little place of somewhere to go.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. And that's kind of being responsible too. Because I don't think anybody should quit their job I think everyone should have a job and a side hustle. And once the side hustle makes more money than the job, then it's time to leave. Just me personally,
Yeah, and it's different, right? So the 19-year-old kid, the 20-year-old kid that's out there and doesn't have, as like my partner Archie would say, doesn't have any baggage. Yeah, go all in. There's no true risk in that. And that was actually a conversation I have with a few people that I respect still to this day out of college. Was one of my professors. It was like, no, everybody has it backwards. Like, school will always be here. You'll never be this young again that can take this amount of risk. So if you're going to go all in, like, now is the time, because once life starts to happen, then it makes it that much more challenging. I do think it's some of the like best advice I've ever gotten. And so now if someone asks me, hey, what do you think I should get into real estate? It's really a depends answer. Like, there are so many factors that go into, truly building something out versus real estate being a really smart investment, and a vehicle to more freedom and wealth that you can do alongside of a great W-2. And a lot of times a W-2 is something that makes the process a heck of a lot easier for people that are looking to buy 1 to 2 rental properties or flip, 1 to 2 homes per year. That W-2 is a cornerstone piece that like lets banks look at you that like Arch and I never had.
Right. You know what? That's really good advice he gave you too, because I never thought about that. When you're 18 years old, like me right now, I got a family. I got responsibilities. For me to take a risk, it's way higher risk for me now, and other people depend on me. Then when I was 18 years old, it's like, go try to hit the home run then. And if you fail, it's only you, and you're not getting punished that bad. Now, the consequences are a lot higher.
Yeah, especially if you love like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Like it's not, it's not that bad. But yeah, I remember working multiple jobs, still taking that. Like I was still killing it on Craigslist, selling tickets and like brokering tickets and stuff like that.
What'd you do? Like Steelers tickets and stuff?
Yeah, concert tickets, Steelers tickets, pens. It didn't matter.
I used to do the same thing with Steelers tickets. I used to just buy the seasons up front and then sell them individually through the year.
Yeah, exactly. And then I coached for fortune builders for a while. So I did a lot of phone coaching and taught a lot of newer investors how to get up and going. So for, 4 years, like 2015 and 2019, I was very focused on teaching people how to get from zero knowledge to getting momentum in a real estate investing business. Then we transitioned a little bit into kind of working with more like higher level people just because of the time requirements. And then really for the last 4 years, like we've just been focusing solely on building out, our businesses. So that's kind of a lot of that transition and journey as well.
So how many deals you guys do last year?
130.
Okay. Yes, you guys aren't messing around.
Yeah, I think this is actually something that for the more experienced people that I did want to mention today. I think what's really cool, something we're seeing in the space right now is a lot of the vanity fall away because a lot of the big gurus are getting ousted for being fake, which a lot of us operators have known over the years. But the information coming out now that, these operations that were doing 200-300 deals a year and they're posting all of these gross profits and gross revenues, and at the end of the day weren't making any profits at all or didn't have a long-standing brand. What's truly the value in that? I and my partner Arch would much rather have something that is consistent, not a prison cell, is a good standing brand that allows you to play the game for 20, 30, 40 years, truly play that marathon game that is required in real estate, not these like flash in the pan wholesalers or flippers that have come in, made a whole bunch of noise, and then frankly have ended up exiting the space altogether and going on to Amazon stores or Forex or some crap like that. I like where the space is going, and hopefully people are starting to truly understand that the mentality that is required to play this game at a high level for a long period of time is completely different than what people have been sold for the last, 7 to 10 years. And, I'm grateful to have been around really good people from the beginning that have always kind of echoed that through the noise. And now we're starting to really see that pay off.
That's what's tough in this space too, because this space, there's some good gurus out there, but I look at a lot of them, they prey on the weak. It's like, okay, hey, I'm going to show you how to get rich in real estate using none of your own money with very little time, or something like super sexy.
Yeah.
But their business is education. Their business is not real estate. Like they might have done some deals, but now they're in an education business. So it's like, you always have to do your due diligence, I guess you can say, when you're choosing who to learn from and what their motives are.
My favorite thing back in the day was I had the hashtag show me the HUD for, quite a few years. It was like anybody that would say something, you could go back to 2016 to 2019. I'd be right there in the comments. Show me the HUD. Show me the HUD. And that stuff started to catch on in 2018, 2019, because it needed to, for some of those guys that were really big in the space. When people would come in to coach them, people that we know, they'd make them sign, NDAs and stuff like that. And it's like, if you're coming in to coach me, I don't care. I want my business to grow. There's nothing that I need to protect or hide from the public here if we're going to bring someone to hire. So yeah, I don't want to spend, it's easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole. And it's something that has frustrated me for years, exactly, is preying on the weak. And especially when it's considerable amounts of money, sometimes people's last dollar and they go in and it's someone's janky 3-hour course that quite frankly isn't an operator or hasn't done deals for a long period of time. Like, yeah, I think that would tick anybody off that has a heart or has seen kind of the back end of the space, if you will. That's something that's always bothered me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Anyone listening to, if you want to get the first taste of real estate, just go get Rich Dad Poor Dad. $10.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the information. It's a funny thing with education too. You can pay $10 for the book, or then it depends on how you learn, or you pay $1,000 for like the video and the course, or you pay $5,000 for the one-on-one, or you pay $50,000 for the mastermind. But in a sense, it's all the same information. It's just the book's the hard route. It's the cheapest route, but like you got to actually read it, and then you don't have the person to ask questions to and stuff like that.
Yeah. One of the things that Arch and I have said for years now is that reassurance is expensive. More often than not, anything that we have, invested into education wise, we already had the idea or kind of knew the direction of where we needed to go, but to go bounce that off and just get that reassurance, like that's what we truly invested in. And it was from people that you had hoped were vetted well enough that when you got that opinion, they could know, you would know that they were coming from a good place or a place with at least some credibility. Because that's one of the most challenging parts about those masterminds and stuff. And I've been in a bunch of them. Is everyone's first instinct when you talk about a problem with the company is fire somebody, like just fire them, just hire new. It's like, you know how expensive it is for a small business to fire somebody that's been there versus like just off the cuff versus trying to invest in them or develop them just because they made a mistake. And so there's all those nuances and caveats when you go to those big events that you don't get to explain. So that's a lot of times why everyone says you get the most amount of value from the one-on-ones after the event. Like I see those big things as a filtering system for who I want to go have one-on-one conversation with. So where you can talk about those nuances, you can talk about those caveats and truly have a sounding board, because that's one of the hardest things, right? Is doing it alone or feeling like you're alone. So still to this day, I mean, we're in a good bit of groups and a lot smaller now, but that reassurance truly is what you're investing in.
I agree. So speaking of books, you wrote a book. Tell me about that. It's Perfect Average Day, right?
It's called The Perfect Average Day. I don't really do it. I don't really haven't pushed it or done much with it. Had a great launch, and it's like more often than not, people are like, you wrote a book. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did. That started out as really an open letter to my son. So I lost my dad when I was 20 years old. He was killed in a motorcycle accident in 2013. And now being, at the time, so I wrote it last year, but I was 30 and I'd been doing business for 10 years, kind of done 10 years of life, a lot of ups and downs. Obviously losing a parent is, a serious piece of adversity and creates a lot of holes and blind spots that take a long time to kind of work themselves out. And a big thing that bothers me consistently is like, man, like my dad at 48, what if I only had 18 years left? What if I only have 10, And so when I'm 40, what do I want to be doing? It's a conversation I started having with myself in 2020, and it was very depressing. Like it was a really bad time for me. I put on a lot of weight. I was drinking, resorting to other things. My wife and I's relationship was absolute garbage. We weren't married yet, but then, and then we got pregnant and we weren't expecting. And while all of that was happening, I was still crushing it in business. Nobody ever knew, that just personally, I couldn't look myself in the mirror. Wife and I's relationship was miserable. And I think most people, you would have no idea, but, started to have a different conversation myself. I did a 75 hard program. Both my wife and I got involved with Arte Syndicate. So that's Andy Frisell and Ed Milet's group. And we really just started looking at life like differently. I started asking questions I'd never asked myself before. And then when Weston, came into the world, it's like, boy, I really gotta make sure that every day is, geared more towards a perfect average day versus these ups and downs and highs and lows. And a lot of that journey had started for us back in 2018, 2019, when we met Gary and Susan Harper and they taught us traction. So from the business side of things, we had a formula. We've had a business rhythm. We've had meetings and a cadence to business where Arch and I can travel 3-4 months out of the year and be away from the business 30 plus days at a time, and the business functions, it runs. We have a good system for that. So a lot of that freedom was built into the business, but that same system we had built over here, I had never applied to like my personal life, those same boundaries, that same discipline. And so once I kind of put that all together over a span of a couple of years and introduced like fatherhood to that and marriage to that, I was like, I might have a little something figured out right now for the time being. And instead of like everyone drawing out their perfect day, right, which a lot of times people will go and say, oh, I'd go up to New York for breakfast, or Italy or Greece, or, you know, be on the beach or the golf course and stuff. It's like, no. What is a day that is more of your normal routine that you could live out, you know, most days? If that was just kind of like your goal day, check all your boxes off, what would be that perfect average day you could live out over and over and over again and be good? And so kind of really started focus on that concept of like, okay, how do I fill all of the buckets as many days as possible? And when you do that, like you chalk up a W, you know, you chalk up a win. Not every day is going to be perfect, right? But it's also a huge piece for building momentum once it's lost, because I truly believe that momentum is one of the most powerful things out there, and being aware of it. So I talk about a lot of those things in the book. There's nothing fancy in there. I tell all my buddies, I'm like, hey, I read at a 3rd grade level, so I wrote it one just for all my friends. It's a shorter read, but I think there's just a couple of tactical things in there, and ultimately perspective changes that I've had that I just wanted to share. And really, when you start talking about legacy and having a legacy piece, like that was something, you know, for me. Because yeah, okay, cool. Weston could drive all over Pittsburgh and see some houses that his dad owns, right? Or go to 2 office buildings or see a team. But like, what about dad's stories? You know, what about dad's childhood? Like, you know, what did dad go through? And because that's something I lost. You know, I like, trauma has a funny way of messing with you. Like, I lost a lot of childhood memories when I buried emotions for 10 years. That was a big part of that process of writing that book, was working through all of those things, going back through all these stories, these memories, and you know, and putting it out there. And then I said, you know what? I think this is a conversation that a lot of people probably want to have right now, but maybe they don't know who to have it with. So if they spend a couple hours and read my book, maybe they'll know they're not alone. And that's something that's really important to me, having lost quite a few friends to this game of life and entrepreneurship, which, you know, real estate investing is a very high risk, high reward business. It comes with a lot of pressure. I think small business does in general. Tack on a pandemic. And, you know, we've definitely lost some really, really good people to that pressure. And so it's like, that was really, you know, in a long-winded way, kind of the big points of doing that project.
Yeah, man. Thanks for sharing. I did not know that. and you know what? It's interesting too, because I thought you were going to say it was about something else. I think a lot of people deal with that kind of stuff. It's like everyone pushes, go out there, crush it. You got to hustle every day. And they build this thing that's like, okay, you have to do this perfect thing every day. That's usually not achievable every day. And everyone then all you do is beat yourself up. It's like, oh shit, I'm failing.
Yeah.
But setting something up like that, it makes sense. It's like, okay, what do I want my normal days to be like that's sustainable and also can, with kids? And you think about that because kids do change things. Like I changed crazy when I had a kid. It's like, okay, I don't just have to think about myself now.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And, you know, and you're right. It's like bumper rails. I just like this analogy I'm working on is it's like bumper rails. So my wife is a therapist as well. She runs virtual counseling company. And that's kind of one of the funny parts and ironic parts about all of this is that we were both miserable, depressed, not talking to each other. And she's a therapist. And I know, you know, I've been doing the business thing for a while. So I usually kind of claim to be pretty good at like psychology and stuff like that and usually have solutions.
Women love when you try to fix them. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah. But we could not figure this thing out, you know? And so I think a lot of it, I think one of the hardest things about it, and I talk about it in the book, is I call it the drift, the slide, and rock bottom. And that drift part is where you set some goals like years ago and you're working towards it, but then you kind of achieve some things you kind of set some things, and all of a sudden life is just this thing that you're just keeping this ball rolling, right? The business, the marriage, the kids, and you kind of get really unaware, and you kind of just, I just call it drifting. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I put on some weight, or you don't sound as happy anymore, or you maybe drinking some more, right? Like these things just happen, but you're not really aware of it. And then when you become aware of it, either you're not far enough down kind of the mountain yet where you can bounce it back. Kind of a big part of the process, right? Or the system that, if I put himself for place for myself, is these bumper rails, to where it's like I may go off track for like a week or 2 weeks, but I know how to have the day. I know, all right, get to the gym, have your kid time, have your wife time, read, have good meetings at business, right? Have a great dinner, see friends, like whatever those things are that you want to do in one day, like have that day. Okay, cool. All I need to do is have another one of those. And it's not extraordinary, it's average. And then you just kind of start rebuilding momentum that way. So that just helped me over the years, these last few years, really kind of put up those bumpers. And just the awareness piece of it is so big. Once you start kind of thinking about these things and you start asking yourself that, then you have so much more control, which is really cool, because most people, I think, don't feel in control about life in general. And so I think this gives you a little bit of that sense, which, being a business operator, I like that feeling of having things under control.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because if you got the map of what your perfect average day looks like, it gets really low anxiety, because it's like, okay, I just got to go do this. We're going to switch topics a little bit, because I want to talk about your brokerage, because you guys are growing quickly. So number one, the question is, how are you doing that? Number two, how are you recruiting the talent? And number three, if anybody's looking for a job, like, what are you offering? Like, what are you offering over these other guys? How are you guys growing so quick?
Yeah, so it's one of the most fun yet challenging things, is like piercing into a market that's been established for so long. In Pittsburgh, since it is a smaller market, your brands that have been around for 50, 100 years are very established. So a couple of other brokerages that have done a really, really good job of really disrupting it by simply going to a 100% commission model. So that's where I came from. I've kind of been in the big box ones. I've been in the boutique brokerages, and I really like the 100% model. And it's more of a transaction-based model, not a volume-based model, which I think is really good for Pittsburgh, because we don't have a crazy high sales volume. So, a lot of times these $2 to $5 million agents are not as valuable to the bigger brokerages as they would be to a transaction-based brokerage. And then on top of that, at that 2 to 5 million mark, their splits are like 50, 60%. And so the amount of money that they leave on the, not only do they leave on the table, but they're also left behind because they're not a top producer and they're not a brand new person. So we're just trying to kind of slide right in there, that the agent that does, 1 to 3 deals a month kind of is in that $2 to $5 million volume point, and we'll do really well with them. And like, so to a smaller outfit like us, they become extremely valuable, which then on top of that, our whole mentality is to invest in our agents' personal brands. I truly believe that the larger franchise and corporate brokerages say that they want to do that, but they don't at all. The only way that they do it is by locking them up in, 2 or 3 year contracts and getting them, signing bonuses. But they're marketing the brand, not the agent themselves, because the biggest fear that a franchise brokerage has is an agent coming in, building up using the brand to build up their name and then going somewhere else. Whereas we have the advantage of being like, hey, you've been everywhere else. We'll actually invest in your personal brand. We'll show you how to do social media. We'll show you how to put this stuff on autopilot. We'll show you how to be unique and break through just the way that we are. Also, we'll provide a great team culture of collaboration. Like, we're in there talking about deals, talking about sellers. It's more of a sales floor type mentality, talking about strategies to help each other grow, do deals with each other, because ultimately the goal is to do more transactions. And then we put transaction coordination in house as well. So because a big part of our model is freedom and boundaries. I mean, it just kind of goes back to the book, right? Of like, and I think real estate agency is one of the least free things that you can do. I've never seen people have less boundaries than real estate agents. You know, when I started doing some retail sales again, and I'm getting texts and calls with expectations to answer them at 10 o'clock at night, I was like, no, this is not how we run things. We're more of a commercial style brokerage, like 9 to 5, and just teaching people that like you can put these boundaries in place. Like you can kick ass in business from 9 to 5. I do it every single day. Our team does it every single day. You just need some pieces put in place that work behind you and for you, like transaction management, like building up your personal brand and putting that on autopilot, so that then you can go focus on doing what you should be doing, which is selling, and ultimately have more freedom. Like you're going to make more money, you're going to have more time and have more fun. That's basically our shtick. And so our goal is pretty simple. We want to be the number one unfranchised brokerage in the city with the least amount of agents. And the way that we are doing that is really having focused on and taking the time to build out our first core 15. And it was all based on personality, not volume. Is based on those core values that we put in place, because I've learned from some buddies that have run some big outfits that your 100th agent is your 15th agent is your 100th agent. And so if you have a high maintenance gossipy office, then at your first 15, when you get to 100, it's only going to amplify. So what's really cool, I'd say the most rewarding part at this point, because I'm frank about it, we're still not profitable at this point, and we're only 14 months in. Don't get me wrong. We made significant investment into the business, but what we are doing, we're watching it work over and over and over again by having these agents that come in at 2 million and go to 5, 0 to 2 million, 0 to quitting their job and being able to have a lifestyle, or have really just be able to afford being a full-time agent at $2 million volume is not a real thing in most other brokerages. Taking your larger agents that are the $5 to $10 million range and doubling their volume by adding transaction management and personal branding, and it just by teaching them a little bit of the business of real estate has been a really cool and rewarding thing to do with the right people. So our biggest thing is we're going to continue to disrupt the way that things are being done. We're going to stay in our lane, have fun, try to shake things up a little bit, and ultimately, just be around good people.
I like it, man. If anybody is looking to make a move, what's the best way to connect?
You can Instagram, Facebook. So I'll call me Shibby. If you're local in the Pittsburgh market, myself or Joey Booker, you can hit us up, find us online. Happy to have a conversation on that side of things. And as always, over at Home Buyers Pittsburgh, we're still buy houses dang near every day, or every other day, I should say. And really focusing on building up the rental portfolio. We're definitely doing some more flips this year than we have in the last few years, just with the market adjustments. But yeah, it's been a heck of a fun ride. And also, if you're talented, if you want to come chop it up with some good people, we're always looking for talent across the company.
I like it. So what's your Instagram handle?
Call me Shibby.
All right, cool. Everyone listening too, we'll put those in the show notes, his website in the show notes also, and the link to the book to check out. Hey, Ryan, is there anything I know we could probably go down, we could probably talk for like 5 hours. Is there anything we missed that we want to talk about, like at the top level?
No, I mean, to keep it short and sweet. I mean, anytime, I'm happy to pop on and have conversations about real estate business. Work-life balance is all fun stuff I like to talk about. I treat this as
work-life balance. That's a whole nother episode there.
I treat this as therapy, Good
stuff, man. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, close some deals. We'll see you guys.